Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Britton's Hangout Hour, episode 30, I think. I've lost count. But I'm here today with another author, Casey Sutton. How you doing, man?
Pretty good. Nice to sit down here and talk with you, Britton. I know we've been in the same couple servers for a little bit now, but nice to sit down here and meet you.
Yeah, no, I saw your book. I'm like, oh, this looks cool, and I saw your author profile. I'm like, yeah, it's all right. You're like
Awesome.
smoking a
Thank you.
pipe in your profile picture.
Yeah, that's actually kind of a funny story. That was like a Halloween picture from a few years ago, and I'm Sherlock Holmes, and my friend, who's a lot more of a convincing Dr. Watson than I am a Sherlock Holmes, is like right next to me, but I had to crop him out. But yeah, that's what that picture's from.
Ah, I see. You wrote Malfus. I think it's behind you. I see it. Is it called
Yeah.
Malfus or?
Here we go. Malfus, Necromancer, Unchained. Sorry
Mm.
if you can't see that too well in
No,
the
I
front
can see
row
fine.
there. All right.
No, I can.
Um,
I can see fine.
yeah, I wrote Malfus, Necromancer, Unchained. I'm a big Dungeons and Dragons nerd. I have probably been playing D&D since about fifth or sixth grade, and my friends always typecast me as the DM. So I was
Yeah.
the one coming up the world and the characters and all the adventures they'd go on, and that was probably where I really kind of first started out, coming up with the skills, I guess, to be an author. And I loved like R.A. Salvatore and the Drizzt Do'Urden series. That was probably like one of the first.
Isn't he the guy who wrote a Driss or or,
Yeah,
or Dritz?
yeah. Drizzt, Drizzed. I don't know how to say it either. I think we probably all say it slightly differently in our head, all the thousands of readers of that story. But yeah, I really like those. Those are probably some of the first kind of like bigger novels that I read as a kid. And that kind of really got me into fantasy reading and everything. And then, at the other end of the spectrum as an adult, like I really kind of fell in love with reading again with Joe Abercrombie and, some of the kind of um, like grimdark fantasy and stuff. And so I wanted a Dungeons and Dragons grimdark kind of story, and that's what Malfus turned into.
Um. Yeah, I also play. Also play. D&D. I have a game on. I have a game on Monday and Saturday. So there you go.
Nice. Yeah, it's not lit very well, but this whole bookshelf behind me is different editions of D&D books and stuff. Dungeons and Dragons and Warhammer. I'm a big fan of
Yeah, I
both of
see some
those.
fifth editions back there. I haven't. I only have one pre-written adventure. Where is it? Right here.
Here's one of my older ones. It's a second edition.
Oh wow, that's an old school one,
Yeah.
huh?
Or actually, I think this is a first edition Advanced Dungeons and Dragons. Yeah, this wasn't even second edition yet. Inherited some of those from my uncle, but yeah, family of nerds, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. The only one I got right now is called the Nether Deep. It's probably backwards on my end, but I don't know if you've watched Critical Role, but I like the world of
Yeah,
that podcast, Exandria, I think. So I'm like, I'm gonna
yeah.
get this. I
I
mean, I
need to
don't.
watch the actual podcast. I've seen all the like the animated series.
Oh my gosh, it's really good. I enjoy it a lot. Cause
Yeah,
that was actually where I
yeah.
first like got into like kind of Critical Role. Cause I kind of went in, I'm like, oh, it's gonna be like some D&D fun adventures, and I'm like, oh wow, this was a lot better than I thought it would be.
Cool. Yeah, I'll definitely have to check that out then.
Um, yeah, no, I mean, I like the Critical Role podcast. The thing is, they're just really long,
Yeah.
and my patience for sitting through things is not what it once was.
Yeah, a lot of the time I hate to admit it, but I'm like from audiobooks to how-to videos to podcasts, a lot of the time I'm at least, 1.25 speed or faster when I'm listening through stuff.
Yeah, no, it's sorry, I got a message from a friend of mine. Yeah, no, it's good stuff. It's good stuff. I also saw you were in the military, so thank you for your service and all that. You know,
Thank
I
you.
don't want
Appreciate
to be
that.
super. I don't want to be super sappy about it, but thank you. That's
Thanks. Yeah, I realize that, a lot of so the cool thing, I'll try my best to have no spoilers, other than you would already find out from reading the, you know, back blurb of the book. But I made a definitely a Dungeons and Dragons novel, but I also set it as kind of like at a siege, so it's military fantasy
mm,
too. It actually I was pretty surprised it hit number one new release in military fantasy when it first came out. I think it's still number two or three there now, but anyways, I definitely feel like I kind of drew on a few, military experiences and stuff when I wrote all that. I wanted to try to capture some of the, chaos and stuff of, being in combat and doing that from different soldiers' perspectives in the story.
yeah. I didn't want to. I watched your interview with Beard of Darkness. Like I saw like a clip of it, and I don't know what it was. Your voice kind of sounded a little hoarse for like. I'm like, I didn't want to. It's kind of like, did it get like, did you get injured when you were in the military or something? Like,
No, I think it was just a mic issue. I wasn't sure if it was on my end or his end because I got a new mic. It might have been I just started wearing headphones and stuff when I'm, starting to do some of these things, and I don't know if it was like my mic coming through his speakers or, if I didn't have it hooked up right on my end. I think they sound good coming through to you now though, so
yeah, no, it
hopefully
sounds
I
good
sound
now. I
good.
was just kind of like,
Okay. Yeah, yeah, no, 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 not sick or anything like that.
oh, okay.
Um, but yeah, so it was can't remember what I was talking about. Cool story to write. It was had some cool different POVs, I guess, of some of the soldiers and Malfus. The story's about Malfus and Necromancer, but there are a few other POVs in there too.
So is it more like an epic fantasy? Is it more like sword and sorcery? Like what is it?
Um, you know, I okay, so I guess that's kind of a hard question to answer. I want it to be epic fantasy, but I don't think that this first story really falls into that category because, from my perspective, epic fantasy is, usually with a lot more POVs, kind of exploring like a much larger world and stuff like that. Whereas the story I'm telling, it is part of like a big, larger, epic world. And there are, a few multiple POVs, but it's mostly centered around probably three, three or four characters, really. And the story, takes place during a siege, and although it's, a typical novel length, I guess maybe a little bit smaller than a large novel. It's about 100,000 words, 290 pages. Um,
It's a good
it,
length.
it all takes place in like a 2 to 3 day period in one spot at this siege, basically. And I do feel like I tell a really cool and complete story in all that time, worthy of being a novel. But I guess what I'm trying to say is my plan is for, the next following books to explore a lot more of the epic fantasy, I guess, genre rather than maybe military fantasy slash sword and sorcery for this one.
Mm.
But there are like, I have gnolls from Dungeons and Dragons. I've always been a big fan of gnolls and the kind of like half hyena thing. There are giants. It does have necromancy, but it is also its own unique world. It's not specifically borrowed from, it's not any Forgotten Realms or Dungeons and Dragons worlds like that. It's my own world with its own history that just borrows on some themes from that fantasy readers would find familiar.
Well, yeah, D&D's inspired a lot of fantasy, or inspired a lot of
Yeah,
fantasy in general.
yeah,
um,
definitely.
think I played like a. I think I played like a. I like the animal hybrids, so I've played as like animal hybrids before. That's always fun.
Yeah, I guess that was kind of, funny too. Like I've always thought necromancy was kind of cool, and as the DM, a lot of the times I'm playing like the bad guys and doing all that. So,
You get to play everybody that aren't
yeah,
good
I get to play
players.
everybody, and so a lot of times I'd use a necromancer as kind of a bad guy, and so for one, I thought it would be cool to do. And Malfus isn't, he's by far not a good guy by any means, but he is the main character, and he's kind of like a morally gray. I would say he's more just kind of a selfish, out for himself person, but he's definitely not evil, and I wouldn't say good either. But I wanted to
He's
have a
not planning on
necromancer
taking
main
over the
character.
world anytime soon.
Yeah, at least not in book one. um,
So what, is
but
he just
like,
chilling and the soldiers show up? He's like, oh hey, interested in some
so
necromancy? And I'm like, what?
actually, it starts out with him. So this is kind of cool. This isn't a spoiler because it's on page one.
Oh, okay.
Um, so I should grab one that has the cover, but I want to show off too that I've been working on
Yeah, I was wondering what
sprayed
that
edges for
was. I
the
was like,
book.
oh, that's cool.
Yeah. Um, Let me show off one that has the cover though. So, anyways, when you open the book, it does have a world map. So, man, I feel like my lighting in here is bad. It does have a world map, and the other books in the story will definitely take place like in this
I do love
larger
fantasy maps.
world. Yeah. Um, and then it also has 10 illustrations inside that I worked with this really awesome artist, Jean Deliche, to do. And
Yeah, I checked out his
so,
site. I like his stuff.
yeah, I actually saw some of his first artwork from some of the Joe Abercrombie art that he did, and I was like, oh, that's awesome. And then I reached out to him and asked about him doing some artwork for me, and he was in. Um, but yeah, so Malthus is there. He is a prisoner. Like the book starts out immediately, like he's just a prisoner. He has these manacles on him that stop him from using magic. And the person who captured him is an inquisitor, and the uh, church there is very powerful in my world, and they have risen to power because there was an ancient calamity caused by necromancy that kind of scarred the world. And you can kind of see that in the background, probably not really too well, but that's where they're at. And the Inquisitor is escorting Malfus back to the Holy Capital so that he can be, tortured and executed for being a necromancer, basically.
They're not even gonna give him a trial, at least.
Well, he'll get a little trial. It'll be a short one.
And he's
um,
gonna be like, I did it. Fuck all y'all.
so they're on their way to the Holy Capital, and then they get ambushed by gnolls, and so they fight some off. The Inquisitor fights some off, and then they're basically forced to flee. And then they take refuge at this military outpost that's already been under siege by the gnolls. And so that's basically kind of where the story starts in the first, very short little bit.
Yeah, I saw that image. I was like, oh man, because I'm kind of doing because I'm writing something right now, and the religious order in my series they're basically like badass Puritans, pretty much.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh man, hope he doesn't think I
Well,
ripped them off.
no, I think honestly there's definitely a lot of different series that have kind of borrowed from that. I know I kind of got the idea from Warhammer, but I think that even they got the idea from crap, I can't think of it now. There used to be a comic strip like back in the day, like back in the 50s or 60s, of this, kind of Puritan guy who had like one of those Inquisitor hats and did all that stuff. I think that's where a lot of it came from. I can't remember it now. I think it was the same guy who did Conan did
Yeah,
him.
I know what you're talking about. Yeah,
Yeah.
I have that book over there. I don't want to. Oh man. Anyway, I'll mess with it later. But
Yeah, so that's basically like where the story starts, and then of course, the commander of the fort, with the injured soldiers and everything, has to make the decision to either help the Inquisitor or free, Malthus in order to raise some dead soldiers and have a chance at fighting off the gnolls.
yeah, no, that sounds cool. I mean, I guess it's just I want to see Puritan religious warriors. I think that's cool for what because
Yeah.
I've always been interested in like Puritans, I guess, for whatever reason. Just their weird
Yeah.
costumes and beliefs, and I'm like, oh, that's interesting. I think you could do something with that.
Yeah, so he's definitely Inquisitor Deza. He's definitely, a powerful character. He's kind of like the antagonist or one of the antagonists. They also obviously have the gnolls and stuff. And and so one part I kind of skipped over. So going back to, talking about being a DM and having like necromancer bad guys that the players always have to fight. One thing that I always felt like was lacking, whether it was Dungeons and Dragons books or other books on necromancy or video games or anything else, like they never really show, for one, it's pretty rare, except for Diablo. I kind of think of Diablo as one of the few games where you get to be a necromancer, but there's not too many games out there where like you're a necromancer, you're usually fighting one. And then I always thought it was silly, like, the adventurers go in or whatever, and you fight and kill a skeleton, then you go to the next room and fight and kill two more, and eventually you make it to the necromancer's like lair, and then he's surprised that you made it through all his minions one at a time. And I really like Brandon Sanderson and his take on magic systems and hard magic systems versus soft magic systems. And like in Mistborn, has a very close POV to his allomancy magic system. So I wanted to do that with necromancy and see or show what it would be like to actually control undead and to be aware of multiple undead at the same time, because I always figured it would be more like attacking one ant in an ant nest. Like if you attack one skeleton and make the necromancer aware of you through all his minions, and all of a sudden he's going to make all of his minions attack you, or he would at least be aware of like a skeleton dying or something. I don't know, kind of random ramble, but that was kind of what I wanted to do with the book too, is kind of explore necromancy as a magic system and show it, to a close POV of Malfus.
So would you say Malfus is he like, is he a villain? Is he more like an anti-hero? Like what is he?
I would say definitely an anti-hero. Like he has a checkered past, which I can't really talk too much about, but some of it is definitely revealed in this novel. And then obviously he has learned necromancy, which is illegal in my world, and so he operates kind of outside the law, I guess. And he's been captured. Now he's been being brought to justice. So, that's actually kind of interesting too. One of the ideas that I had like a few different ideas that merged together when I came up with this story. But one of them was, what if the Joker was the good guy and Batman was the bad guy? And so, Malthus isn't necessarily like the Joker and a good guy, but I kind of thought about it in the sense of, the Joker kind of operates outside the laws of society, and Batman is very much, enforces the laws of society. So the Inquisitor is kind of the Batman to the extreme, and then Malthus is, more or less the Joker and a necromancer, I guess, kind of mixed together.
Oh wow, that's interesting. Yeah, no, Batman was an inspiration on because I've realized that fantasy at the end of the day you can just kind of make it up. You don't really have to like, because sometimes people conflate it with like historical fiction, which isn't bad. I mean, I think it's not a bad idea to go from like historical stuff, but it's like I'm like, I don't have to be accurate. I can just do whatever I want, and Hopefully it'll feel
Yeah.
authentic enough. People will be like, oh, well, okay.
I feel like as long as, your world is like consistent, then, that's the most important part. And so I guess a big focus with my world is obviously like with necromancy and the magic system. So I am trying my best to make sure, the magic system is consistent and kind of has like, not like rules like D&D rules, but rules in the sense of like with Brandon Sanderson's books, like how, you as the reader kind of figure out how it works so you have an understanding of what the character can and can't do. I guess that's what according to Sanderson's, rules or whatever with magic systems, that's kind of the difference between a soft magic system and a hard magic system. Like Gandalf is the example of a soft magic system where like he can wave his staff and you don't really know what he's capable of. Can he kill a Balrog? Maybe. Can he, you don't really know what he can or can't do is Gandalf the White, I guess. And so that's a soft magic system, whereas a hard magic system is like Brandon Sanderson and Mistborn, where, I guess that's the example I keep using, but uh, where the magic system's kind of explained and you can pick it up a little more. Like even like Avatar: The Last Airbender is a pretty good example. Like you kind of get how all the different elemental magics work, the more you watch that show, and by the time you're through like the first season or so, you kind of understand how they all work.
Yeah, I mean, I've never read Brandon Sanderson myself. I do want to at some point because I'd feel like a bad fantasy fan if I didn't read. At least give him a try. But like, it's weird. It's funny you bring up the system, like kind of systematic way some people approach magic. I don't know. I've always preferred like magic being kind of this weird thing that's never fully defined. So I guess I like
Yeah.
soft magic systems more. But it's
And you can have that's one thing people don't realize too is like you can have both magic systems in the same story. Like for example, Malfus's magic system is a hard magic system in the sense of the story for the reader because I'm introducing the rules and how it works through Malfus's point of view. But then, for example, like let's say in another book, there's this other wizard who has a different type of magic, and he's like the bad guy that Malthus has to, fight or track down. Because Malthus, because the other wizard's magic system, Malthus doesn't understand, and if you're telling the story from his point of view, then it effectively becomes a soft magic system for, the reader and the user because nobody really knows what they're capable of except for you as the author. So you can definitely have both types in the same story.
Yeah, no, I try not to be super black and white about it because there are
Yeah.
some magic systems that are like, okay, I could like Harry Potter, where you're like, okay, they're just flicking their wand around and saying words and
Right.
it's coming out, and I'm like, all right, that's fine. And then it's like, but like, I don't know, it's just, or even in like D&D, I'm like, I'm fine with it. It's like,
Yeah. I think part of it too is kind of like what type of story you're trying to tell. And I mean, really, there is no one size fits all. Like there's no right or wrong answer, and any type could work in any story. As long as you know you understand how you want it to work and how you want it to work for the story. But like for example, like a hard magic system might work a lot better with stories where the character's like solving a puzzle or something, and they're using their magic to solve a puzzle or a problem, and you as the reader are following along with them in their thought process, as they're doing this or things like that. Um, Whereas with the soft magic, it like you said, it leaves a lot more room for just kind of anything can happen, and even that is like a magic system in itself. Like I think there was I can't remember which Terry Pratchett book it was, but there was one where magic was just so kind of weird and random, like anything could happen, and that was just part of the story, you know.
It was like chaos magic or something.
Yeah, like you would use it and then like you would kind of get what you want, but then it would have like a 100 different side effects that you had no idea were going to happen, and and even that's just kind of a story in itself, you
Like
know.
that's one of the things, like First Law, for instance. I kind of like how it's like this isn't really clearly defined, and even like the
Yeah,
wizard,
that's
even the magi aren't fully like, even despite all their knowledge, even they're not fully aware how it works. You know.
yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, the first law is definitely a soft magic system.
Um. Yeah. No. I bring that up because I actually finished the trilogy this
Oh, nice.
year for the first time.
Yeah.
And I also read Best Served Cold because they announced that they're probably going to be making a movie. Um,
What do you think of that one? It's interesting because from what I have seen, and I've read all the books, but most people, it seems like, most people like his trilogy, and then when people get to like the middle four books, there's a lot of people who don't make it through them. And then a lot of people, for whatever reason, I think Red Country and Best Served Cold are like two of the most what's the word for it? Controversial books, I guess, that he
Divisive?
has. Yeah, there we
No.
go. That's what I was looking.
I like Best Served Cold. I had some problems with it though. Like it got a little
Yeah,
too repetitive after a while. I was like, okay, I get it. I, you know, there's some great
yeah,
characters in it though. I like
yeah.
Morvir, the poisoner.
Oh man, yeah, he was cool. He was so much fun. Like there were just so many. I feel like he just kind of went crazy with awesome characters in that one. It was so hard to pick just one, like from Morvia to Friendly to Casca, like all those
Yeah,
people, and
no,
they
like
were
they're
just
all like, like and also like it was weird because like the main character wasn't quite as interesting as like the like side people,
yeah,
because all the side
yeah,
characters kind of like wacky and weird and nigh sociopathic, some of them, but like
right.
I really
Yeah, that
enjoyed
was
like
that was a fun book.
I saw why Casca is very well loved in the community. He's just like Casca. One of my favorite
Yeah,
like
that
running
was fun.
gags. One of my favorite running gags in the original trilogy is that he would like use his throwing knives and they'd always miss.
Yeah,
I'm just like, oh my gosh, this is so bad. No,
that's funny.
and like yeah, and they even go with it in this one. He like throws it and it finally hits. He's like, yes. Because often he's like really drunk off his ass.
Yeah.
Kind of like I do also kind of like that bait and switch. Like they think he's like this has been drunkard, and like he's like, oh no, he's still pretty dangerous.
Yeah. Yeah, that was pretty cool. So you finished Best Surf Cold and you haven't made it to the other ones yet?
Nah, I'm taking a break right now. So
Yeah.
there's other stuff
Yeah.
I want to read. Like I have Beyond Redemption over there. I want to read that. There's other
Yeah.
fantasy I want to read too. I am planning on getting back to Joe Abercrombie, so don't worry, everyone. Before everyone starts freaking out.
Yeah, I feel like since I have kind of been writing and taking that a lot more seriously, I've been really I there's still a ton of series that I want to go back and finish, don't get me wrong, but I've been trying to limit myself to reading a lot more like first books from authors just to kind of broaden my, chops on different authors and writing styles and stuff, and definitely plan to go back and finish some other series, but a lot of first books lately.
Yeah, no, yeah, I like First Law a bit. It's some good stuff. I just haven't. And I'm not against reading the other ones. I'm just like, all right, I'm gonna take a break. I was gonna do it after Last Argument of Kings, but then they're like, hey, we're
Yeah.
gonna make a Best Served Cold movie. So I was like, damn it. So I read it and I'm like, okay, it's pretty good. It's a good one.
Yeah.
It's
The audiobooks are pretty cool too. Stephen Pacey did an really amazing job narrating those.
Yeah, I'm not much of an audiobook guy. Like, I don't have anything against them, but I like the like physical sensation of reading.
Yeah.
But yeah, those audiobooks were really good.
Yeah, I'm the same way. Well, I like a little bit of everything. Like I will usually have a book I'm reading about writing. I'll have a fantasy book that I'm reading, like a physical one, and then a lot of the times I'll also have an audiobook that I'm listening to too, just while I'm uh, everything from doing the sprayed edges on the books to mowing the lawn, just kind of random stuff like that. Like sometimes I'll listen to music, but a lot of the times I'll just listen to audiobook too.
Yeah. Um, but yeah, you wrote a book called Malfus. It's called Malfus. I forget the subtitle. It's like Necromancer something. So
Necromancer Unchained, because yeah, he
Necromancer
starts
Unchained.
with the manacles that stop him from using magic. So,
Ah.
um, yeah, so I wrote that. Man, so it's kind of a whole crazy story on that, but um I always wanted to write. Like I've always been a big reader, and I guess been a part of me that always wanted to write, but just never really pursued it. I guess I just kind of never felt like I was ready or good enough, and I would have a bunch of books, on writing that I would read throughout the years and stuff, but just never quite felt ready. And then in 2018, I went to Johannesburg, South Africa to visit my girlfriend. She goes to school here in Ohio,
Hmm.
and she's an international student. She's originally born in Bulgaria, but her family lives in South Africa. So,
Wow,
um,
what a history.
yeah, yeah, she's pretty cool. She speaks like four different
Oh
languages.
my
She's
gosh.
really, yeah,
You
maybe
start
she's
talking to
smart.
her and she's just like, and I imagine you're just like, oh.
Yeah, yeah, she's smart. She has a really cool accent. She's working on her PhD now, actually. Um, but yeah, so we went to go visit her family in 2018, and then it was Christmas Eve, and I woke up and was just like throwing up blood, and it was really, yeah, crazy.
Ooh.
Had to get rushed to the hospital, and the first hospital we went to, like they didn't have the right doctors on staff because it was Christmas Eve. So then we had to get
Of
rushed
course.
to
Of
right.
course.
Yeah, and so then you have to get rushed to the next hospital, and by that time, like I'd lost enough blood, like I was starting to go into shock and everything. Like I remember, like my lips were tingling, my fingers were tingling. But they got me into surgery just in time and patched me up. But so then, I was in like the ICU for like a week, and I had like three books next to me that I had brought with me, and one was like a blank journal, and then the other two were books on writing, how to start your novel, how to write better. And I kind of realized then, I may never get the chance to wait until I feel like I'm ready, and I actually started writing that night in the hospital bed.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, no, I finally kind of overcame the fear because I was
Yeah,
talking to a friend of mine. And he just kind of gave me a kick, and I'm like, all right, I guess I'll just do it. 'Cause-
awesome. Yeah, like if I could go back and give myself any advice or anybody who wants to write advice, definitely read books on writing. Definitely read books that you want to write in the genre that you want to write. And also, like I said, read books on how to improve writing, how to write well. But at the same time you're doing all those things, start writing yourself. There's nothing stopping you from writing yourself. And even if it's not the book that you want to publish or your first book, like write a short story in that world. So that's also some kind of other really great advice. I think is I have a short story called Greedy as a Ghoul, which is like a prequel short story to Malfus.
Wait, it's
It's
called
also
Greedy Isn't Cool.
Greedy as a Ghoul.
Oh, Greedy as a Ghoul. Sorry.
Yeah.
Good lord, I just misheard that completely.
Kind of a mouthful. It's a tongue twister. Um, but yeah, so I wrote that short story actually kind of after the first draft of Malfus, while I was waiting for it to get edited and everything. And it's really short. It's only 3 chapters long, like 9 or 10,000 words. And I made it free and put it on Amazon, and just to kind of help like attract readers and to get people
Test the
interested in my
waters.
writing. Yeah, and I mean, it's like I feel like it's great as an author because I mean, anytime you get somebody like you're talking to somebody and they're like on the fence at all about your book or anything, or like, yeah, it sounds interesting, you could always just very easily say at the end or in a comment or whatever, and oh, by the way, I have a free short story here that you could check out to see if you're interested in my writing, and you know, you as a writer get to work and practice on something while you're thinking about your novel.
Yeah, no, that's always a good idea. I mean, me, I want to write in several genres because if I just wrote in one, I'd probably get bored after a while. But
Yeah.
that's just me. Uh,
Yeah, I agree. I think eventually it'd be cool to write in a few other genres. I definitely have more books planned for Malfus. I'm not sure how many. I think it'll at least be a trilogy, but I kind of see 4 books in my head. But yeah, it'd be cool to write some other genres too.
yeah, so is like Malfus an arc, or is it just like just wacky adventures he gets into, or is it just like both?
So the so the Greedy as a Ghoul, like that prequel short story, I kind of wanted to do something interesting with those where the first one starts like a year before the novel, I guess, and it's standalone. Like you don't have to read the prequel to understand the novel, and the prequel is a self-contained story. But I wanted to introduce a new type of undead and a new type of spell in like some of these different short stories. So I actually wrote a couple of these short stories, but I've only published one. But I was thinking like eventually, because basically what I'm doing is I'm working on book 2 now, but when I get to parts where I'm like stuck or something, then I work on one of these short stories just so I can keep writing, keep working on something. So the short story prequels, eventually I think I will be their own kind of book, and those will kind of be maybe wacky misadventures. But for the books, 1 through 3 or 4, it definitely will be an arc. And I know where the story's headed. I just not all the dots in between yet.
So you're not gonna be in like a George R. R. Martin or Patrick Rothfuss situation where you're just like, oh, sorry guys, I'm working on it.
Yeah, I hope not. I'm definitely I feel like talking to some other writers that and how fast they write. Like I feel like I'm kind of a slow writer if there's a spectrum for that, but I do write a little bit every day. So even if it's, some days it's 1,000 words, some days it's a little more, some days it's only 100 words, some days I chop off 200 words that I didn't like from yesterday, but I'm working on it at least a little bit every day.
I've been surprised by it's a weird thing because I'm the same way. Like sometimes I'll be like on a roll, sometimes I'm like, what the hell am I doing?
Yeah.
And then like there's other time, but I have like 6 chapters left of my first draft, so I'm really and an epilogue, but yeah, I'm
Nice.
looking
Hey,
forward to
that's
it.
a lot of progress. That's good, man.
Yeah, everyone's like, oh man, you're working fast. I'm like, dude, got no idea.
Yeah.
I know.
I
That
feel
was one
like
of my things. I was like, I thought this was gonna take longer because I set a time for myself and I write every day. So that's
yeah.
I always recommend that to people. I'm like, if you can't like just sit down and do it, just like set a time and do it. Like,
Yeah, I'm kind of cursed to where I just wake up early no matter what. It doesn't matter if I go to bed at 8 o'clock or 1 in the morning. Like I just wake up at 6 no matter what. And the funny thing is that's not even from the military. At least I don't think so. Like after I got out, I had no problem sleeping in. But in the last few years, I think I just kind of wake up at 6 almost every day. So I get up, make some coffee, feed all my cats, and then go up and write for at least an hour. Usually more if I can do it.
yeah, no, that's fair. There's sometimes it's kind of slow and you're just like, man,
Yeah, and I feel like, I mean, honestly, I feel like the people who try to do, I mean, I guess unless it's like NaNoWriMo and you're just trying to do like a word count, goal or something like that. I feel like the people who are trying to do daily, word counts and always try to hit 1,000, always try to do this. I don't think that's really a great way to go my cat just jumped up behind me.
I just saw him leap. I'm like, damn.
Sometimes I'll forget they're up there, and then she'll just jump down and make so much noise. It's just like a bomb dropping behind me. Sometimes I forget she's there. But yeah, I don't think that having like a word count you're always trying to get every day is good practice. Because for one, it's stressful, but and I know I'm not like some expert writer. I've only finished a book and a tiny short story, if you count that. But from the editing process, at least with what I went through, when I finished the first draft, I think I had around 140,000 words, and cut it down to 125,000 maybe through my own editing, and then basically through the different rounds of editing got it down to like 110 and then 100,000 words. But I did this without actually removing any scenes, without getting, with a handful of like tiny parts or maybe, kind of gotten rid of, but without really moving anything from the story, that I had put in there. And it was basically just a process of condensing my writing, getting rid of a few redundant phrases and just making the writing more powerful by making it say the same things with less words. And I guess I'm a firm believer in that. So I feel like if you get to where you're just trying to do 2,000 words every day and pushing yourself and just writing, that, then you're going to get to where you're just writing crap and redundant sentences. And a lot of that's going to sneak in with those thousands of words,
I don't really do that. I'm just, I write what I feel like it, and then I'm like, all right, tomorrow I'll write some more.
Yeah.
And you just kind of...
Or I guess maybe a better way to say it is, at least for me, when I was writing my first draft, I was focused on as many words as I could put in there. And then when I was actually editing it, it was like I was trying to see how many words I could take out every day. Kind of go in the opposite direction.
Yeah, no, me, I'm just like, I gotta get this down, and then when I'm done getting it down, then I'll nitpick it. Because I'm terrible at that. Because, like, that was one of the things that kind of, I'm like, oh, man, how am I gonna write this sentence? And then my buddy's just like, just write the damn thing. So I'm like, you know what? I'll just do that.
Yeah, no, I agree with you 100%. Like, I went and wrote my whole first draft before I went back and edited like that. Like, I definitely would not recommend authors to do that either. Like, finish your writing, get the first draft down, then go back and edit it, or else you'll just be stuck there forever.
Sorry, I was talking to my dad. Oh, now my kitty's in here. Come here. Come here. My partner in crime. In these cases.
Oh no, I think I froze up. Am I still here?
Nah, yeah, I still see you. You see my cat?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, no. I've just, like, but yeah, just kind of what I've learned is, like, you know what, I'll just write it down, and then, like, when I'm in editing, then I can, like, make it more poetic or whatever.
Oh, I'm breaking up a little bit. I'm not sure if it's on my end or your end.
You're kind of skipping a little bit, but I can mostly hear you. Can you hear me fine now?
Yeah, it's better now.
Okay. Oh man, one of my last episodes, I don't know how much like BookTube you watch, but I had Josh from Red Fury Books on, and like his thing kept crashing. It was, oh god, it's gonna be. Yeah, it was a great conversation, but I was just like, oh my gosh, yeah.
Yeah. Both with Beard of Darkness and then this other booktuber, or not booktuber, someone from Book Talk actually did like a kind of short podcast with me earlier on Monday, and I think with both of us, like, we Barely got everything up and running like right, minute before the scheduled time. Just all kinds of issues figuring all this stuff out and technology. Gotta love it,
Yeah,
gotta hate
no.
it.
Yeah, no, I love that. It's just so like what are some of your favorite like fantasy things? Whether it be like books or movies or games or whatever you're into. I know you like Dungeons and Dragons, but I mean even other RPGs. No prejudice here.
Yeah. So I'm definitely a huge Warhammer fan. I love Warhammer. I also love Warhammer 40K. I read a lot of Dan Abnett's Warhammer 40K books.
I've
I'm a
heard the
big fan of.
lore in Warhammer is like really good. So
Yeah, to me, Dungeons and Dragons is to fantasy as Warhammer is to like grimdark. I feel like Warhammer is kind of like a grittier, adultier version of Dungeons and Dragons, at least as far as the role playing games and stories go.
yeah, no, I've seen people like have their little like have like these like dioramas. I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't think I can
Yeah.
do it.
Yeah, I did more of like the role playing game, than the miniatures and stuff. I think it's cool, but yeah, that is a
Oh
hobby
no,
I
I
don't
think
have
it's
the
great.
money
Like that's
for.
really cool. Like that's really cool. People can do that. I just don't think I could do it. I don't know if I have the patience or like
I'd n-
the
I'd
skill to do any of that.
never financially recover from that if I
Yeah,
got into that.
yeah, I'd be like Joe Exotic, just like I'm never going
Yeah.
to. I'm never gonna.
Um,
Financially.
but I like Warhammer. Some of the first books I actually read as a kid were Redwall. Did you ever read any of those books?
That sounds
Um,
familiar.
it was a cool series. It was really unique. It was written by Brian Jakes, a English author. I think has passed away a while ago, but Redwall was like YA fantasy, but instead of people or humans or elves and stuff, it had like anthropomorphic animals. So it was like
Oh,
mice and squirrels and otters, but they had like armor and weapons and castles and like they were like the good animals, and then the rats and weasels and stuff were like the
but of
bad
course,
animals. Yeah.
the rats and the weasels are the
Stereotyped
bad
the
ones.
rats and weasels, but yeah, so then they would like have, battles and fight each other and stuff. And so that was a really cool one of the first series that kind of got me into fantasy too. And then I'm a huge video game nerd too. I'm a big fan of Dark Souls and Elden Ring and games like
Ah.
that too.
I've never gotten into those 'cause I'm not like one of those like guys who likes to. I'm not like a challenge junkie. I don't like go into like video games. I'm like, oh man, it's gonna be so hard. I can't wait to
Yeah, I
go at
joked
this like 8 times. I'm just like,
I actually joked with my friend about it because he's he plays Dark Souls and Elden Ring too, but he's not a writer, and so I played Dark Souls and Elden Ring first before I really got into writing and started writing.
I heard the
And so
lore in it
once
is very good. Like,
yeah, it is cool, and I love the way they do it too, where it's like they kind of breadcrumb it and like force you to search for it. Um, but yeah, I joked with my friend where I was like, playing Dark Souls and Elden Ring is prepared me to be a writer. It's given me the tenacity and willpower and masochism to be able to write a whole novel.
oh yeah, no, I'm just a wiener. I'm like, where's the normal
Oh
mode
no, it
on this
froze up
game?
again.
Can I put it on normal?
I wonder if it's me. I think I'm a little far away from my router today.
Well, I can hear you still.
Yeah.
Can you hear me fine
Okay.
again?
Yeah, I can hear you again.
All right, now. Yeah. Again, gotta love that technology. But
Yeah.
no, yeah, no. I don't know if I'm. That's the thing. I'm not I'm all like, where's the normal mode on Dark Souls? Anyone? I was like, so I don't play them because I'm just it's not really, I like more like story driven
Hey,
games.
let me try. Hey, I missed all that. Let me see if I can just try to recall back and see if that fixes the sound. Is that gonna work or would that mess things up?
No, you can call me back.
Okay.
All right.
All right. Let me see.
Well, little incognito. At the moment, I see my cat going on. I put up a new video as of today. Oh, he's back.
To close out everything else, hopefully. This. Yeah. So, what kind of games do you like to play?
Oh, well, the thing I was mainly trying to say was like I'm more like a story-driven kind of gamer, you know. Like,
Yeah.
I love The Last of Us. I think it's one of the like best games ever.
Yeah.
I like I like art, like I like kind of like open world RPGs, like I like Fallout, New Vegas quite a bit, and
That was a cool one.
I started Baldur's Gate, but I stopped playing it. I haven't, but I was enjoying it when I played it.
So I got a
Uh,
suggestion for you. This is a really weird game most people haven't heard of, but have you heard of the game Disco Elysium?
that's that sounds familiar. Yeah, no, that's funny you say that. I think I was actually talking about that with a friend of mine on this exact show a few weeks ago.
Okay, so Disco Elysium is probably one of the most unique games that I've ever played, and basically it's incredibly story driven and very there is a lot of like text there, but it's all in the new edition they have fantastic voice actors like reading most of the text, but it's really funny. You basically start out the game as this alcoholic detective waking up from an alcohol induced coma, passed out in a hotel room. And so like the first mystery you have to solve is trying to figure out who you even are and what you're supposed to be doing. And then it's basically like this mystery. You're solving this murder mystery, which kind of just balloons into way more stuff, but it just has some of the best writing and dialogue I've ever seen in a video game.
I'll have
And
to check it out then. That sounds
the
right up my
yeah the
alley.
it oh
I,
and
I
the
love
guy who
alcoholic
created it
detectives.
the guy who created it, I think, is actually a writer as well. Like I think he published one book, but I don't know that it ever went too far. And I think it's also, I can't remember what country it is, some Eastern European country, I think. Um, but to me, the coolest thing about the game is just the way like the leveling system works, and really, I guess, kind of how the whole game works based off of that. But there are four main stats. There's like your so there's four main, I guess, families of stats, and then there's like five different subcategories within each one. And I won't list them all out, but it's basically like your body or physical stats, and then kind of like agility type stats, and then mental type stats, and then kind of like social type, stats. But anyways, all like you put points into each one, and then they basically become these different voices in your head. So then you have conversations, and like let's say you put some points into empathy, and then like you'll have like a internal dialogue from empathy, that kind of jumps in the conversation and
Mm.
tells you something, or things like that. And it's really funny. Like my favorite one's actually electrochemistry, which is kind of like your detective's like drug sense. And I basically play him as like this addict, and like you're having this conversation, then all of a sudden this voice will be like, I think he has drugs. You need to
He
ask
has
him, get to the
drugs.
bottom of this mystery and find out. So then like you get this sub quest from electrochemistry to find out if this guy you're talking to has drugs, and then you have like a cop partner that you're trying to like hide some of this stuff from at the same time he's like there too. Anyways, it's just got some like really, it's one of the most
I'll,
unforgettable games I've played, I'll say
I'll
that.
I'll have to check that out. 'Cause that sounds right up my alley.
Yeah.
I also like GTA. A lot of people are like, "Oh yeah, you can just run around shoot people," but like some of the like, especially in like GTA 4 and 5, like some of the storytelling in that is very strong. Um,
Yeah, some of those games are pretty cool. I
um,
remember playing I think Grand Theft Auto 3 a ton when I was in either Iraq or Afghanistan, one or the other.
Same from the same company. I like Red Dead Redemption 1 and 2.
Mm,
I think Red Dead
those
Redemption
were
2
good.
might be one of the best games that I've ever played. It's one of the few
Yeah.
that have actually like gotten me. Like it's hard to get me to cry, but that game, like I played it a couple times, and like I every time he goes towards the camp for the last time, like I tear up. I'm like, oh man. Oh.
Uh, yeah, that was an awesome game. Yeah, Red Dead Redemption 1 was cool. I remember that one coming out, and I was like, oh, yeah, that was a cool game. But then when Red Dead Redemption 2 came out and I played that, I
I'm
was
like
like,
that. This might be better.
yeah.
Even.
Oh, it definitely was better. It was one of the top probably 10 games I've ever played, if not more than that.
I also loved shooters growing up, like Call of Duty, Battlefield. I don't play them
Yeah.
as much anymore because a lot of them have gotten kind of, I don't want to say bad, but I've kind of grown bored with them. Like they're not like
Well, feel like the older I've gotten, I don't have those 12-year-old meth squirrel reflexes that these kids have. I go in there like I got the old man reflexes. I'm like, yeah, I was an army vet, I'll be fine. I'm dead in like 2 seconds.
yeah, I hate that. I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
it's just. And also, it's weird because like they started doing like these big like open world like battlefields, and I hate that too because I'm like I like more like close quarter stuff, or like
Yeah.
more action. It's just like oh man, I I can't do
I
this.
I have to say I definitely like games a lot more lately that have like less commitment. Like I used to be a huge World of Warcraft nerd. I played World of Warcraft for years. And I like games like that, but at the same time, like just the time commitment some of those role-playing games and grinding games take, like I just don't really have I just have the guilt trip now where I'm like I should be writing. So I like games like, you know, Fortnite, for example, like where I can play with my friend and his son and just have like a few quick matches and then not feel bad for playing a game and getting back to writing.
I mean, yeah, no, it's good stuff. What are some other games I enjoyed? I don't know if you're I don't know if you like superheroes, but the Spider-Man game that came out a few years ago, I really
Yeah, that
enjoyed.
was
I want
cool.
to replay that since the new trailer for the new one just came
Yeah.
out. But I really enjoyed that game a lot.
Yeah, I didn't beat that one, but I played that one and really enjoyed that one. That was really cool. I got pretty far, I think, maybe three quarters.
I know. I felt like a kid. I'm like, oh man, I'm Spider Man. Hey
Yeah.
mom, look, I'm Spider Man.
Yeah, that was really cool. I did
2018 was a
like the
great year for
open.
video games, is all I'll say.
Yeah. I was a huge fan of The Witcher 3, obviously, when that came out.
I
That was
played
a
that. That was
masterpiece
very good.
game.
I'm like,
Yeah.
I got so sucked up. That was one of those I just got really sucked up into. I read the first
Oh,
like
man.
collection of stories over there, and I was
Yeah.
like, okay, I might need to stop for a minute.
Yeah, I really liked that kind of series too. I kind of like you're talking about arcs and misadventures too, and I feel like Witcher is an excellent combination of having like some different little Geralt misadventures and then also having like the overarching stories in there too.
Yeah, though it sucks when it ends because like, oh man, there's no more stuff to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
Dang it!
Yeah, I'm not
So then I replay it. Because there's stuff like Red
not
Dead 2, like I replayed several times because I'm like, oh my gosh, I wanna play this again because
yeah.
it's a blast to play, but it's like God, the story is so good. Like, oh man,
Wish you could just erase your memory and play through it again.
yeah, I know it's one of those things. What are some other games I enjoy? I enjoy KOTOR, the first. I haven't played the second
Yeah.
one yet. I played that a few years ago, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is really good, guys. Like, what?
Yeah, I remember. I think that was another game I had in Iraq on the old school Xbox. Played that over there. That was a really cool game. I was definitely a big fan of all the like Final Fantasy games and stuff. Growing up, I'm a '80s kid, so actually the first Final Fantasy on Nintendo, and then upgraded to Super Nintendo and played the American 2 and 3. Love those games too. 7, of course, was awesome.
I also like the BioShock games, though I have some problems with them, like in terms of like the narrative.
Yeah.
But those are also really good. The new God of War games I really enjoyed.
Those
the
are
combat was so fluid in that game, and also
Yeah.
I enjoyed the story as well. But like I'm just like, man, this combat is so like, oh, it's so graceful.
Yeah, I liked a lot of the Assassin's Creed games too. I feel like they kind of ran away a little bit. I haven't played some of the more recent ones, but I definitely played a lot of the starting ones of that series. Those are fun.
Yeah, no, I tried playing one of them a few years ago, and I just got really impatient because, like, I am terrible at stealth in games. Like, I'm always getting found out, and I'm always getting shot at. And I'm like, come on, man!
Just kill everybody, and there's
I don't want to
to
just
tell
kill
you were
everyone.
there.
I want to just. Sometimes I just want to see the scenery, And
Yeah. Yeah, those games were
I just
cool.
want to get on. I don't want to murder everybody.
I also played, a fair amount of like, I guess some of the real-time strategy games like Warcraft 2 when that came out, and StarCraft. Some of those games too were fun.
Yeah, no, I never really I never played like War of Warcraft though. World of Warcraft. I always remember this. I don't know if you watch South Park, but I always remember the South Park. Make war, not
Yeah.
Lovecraft, or not Lovecraft. Or like make love, not Warcraft. It's a great
Yeah, that
but-
episode is funny.
Yeah, no, but I'm like, I always think of that. I mean, I haven't played it. Like, I played Skyrim a lot,
Yeah,
and like,
Skyrim's awesome.
now I'll admit the story is not great, but like the world and like the animation and all the cool places, like I'm just like that made it worth the time for me.
Yeah.
Though you have to mod it to make it like more enjoyable playing experience.
Yeah, that's kind of crazy too. Like I played The Witcher 3 when it first came out, and then the expansions came out, and my younger brother, is a huge Witcher fan, especially the video game, and he's kept telling me like, "Oh, you got to play the expansions, got to play the expansions." I still haven't finished them all, but I reinstalled The Witcher. Are they?
They're good. I enjoyed them.
Yeah.
I really like the Heart of Stone one. The vampire one's pretty good, but I was like, I liked Heart of Stone more because I'm kind of a sucker for like deal with the devil type of stories. So
Nice.
yeah.
Nice. Yeah, I'm definitely gonna have to check it out. But when I reinstalled it, I was like blown away by all the different like mods and graphic packs, like gigs of downloads for graphics.
Like a painting. I'm like, oh, man. It's like Red Dead 2,
Yeah.
actually. It's like, I'm like, this looks like a painting, I'm like,
There's still a guard stuck halfway up the wall, but it looks amazing.
There was a Star Wars game that came out a few years ago. I think it was Jedi Fallen Order. I really enjoyed that. I really want to play the sequel to that, but I don't have a PS5 yet.
Yeah. That was kind of funny. I played the first one. I haven't beaten it. It was really cool. But then I haven't played the new one, but I saw a video where someone, because I guess you can do different fighting styles, and like somebody specialized in like the blaster fighting style. And then they also gave him like a haircut, so he had like a mullet and a mustache. And then I just see like this montage
Like Joe
video.
Dirt.
Yeah. And it's playing like Team America music in the background, and he's just blasting everybody. It was so hilarious.
I might need to watch that. That sounds great.
Yeah, and I think he even had like the clothes they picked for. He had like a wife beater shirt on and stuff. It looked hilarious.
So I just modded it, the whole thing and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's. Yeah, I mean, there's some of those games like GTA 5 or like the multiplayer is just so like well realized. I like the story of GTA 5, but I would say like GTA 4 is probably my favorite story of the games.
Yeah.
In that series, at least so far. And it was funny. I remember remember a friend of mine and I would play it on his PSP in elementary school, and we didn't know, like, had no idea most of the stuff they were talking about. And then, like, years later, I'm watching, I'm like, how did we play this, and what were we doing? Like, how did we not, like, maybe we shouldn't be playing this.
Yeah. Yeah, those games were definitely awesome. Very very ahead of their time, especially Grand Theft Auto 3 when it came out.
Yeah, I played 3. It's a good one. Yeah, the graphics are a little old now, but like I get that. It's
Oh
like,
yeah.
I get, like, of the time. It still holds up, I thought.
Yeah. I remember back in the day, I think it came out when I was in, if I remember right, I think it came out when I was in high school or not long after that. And back in the day, we were like, oh, look at them polygon graphics slapping the TV.
Yeah, no. What's another game I liked? I played this one game. It's called, like, Hellblade, and
Sounds familiar.
it's about this Norse lady who has, like, schizophrenia, pretty much, and
that's cool.
she goes into Valhalla to find her lover, and I didn't beat it, but I was playing it. I would recommend playing it with, like, earbuds, because you can, like, hear the voices and, like, the atmosphere, and it's, like, really...
That's cool.
It's really cool. I need to beat that game, but I was really enjoying it. Though, admittedly, the combat's fine, but it can be really annoying, because some of it's, like, weird. I don't know.
Yeah.
And it is kind of like a maze. You're like, where am I supposed to be going?
Have you heard of the game Dark and Darker?
I don't think so. That doesn't ring a bell at the moment. I've been I've been so bad at keeping up with video games recently, because
so this one's an interesting game because it's kind of like secret. I guess it's not out yet, and it is made from these Korean developers, and I guess there is this big lawsuit controversy where this other company is claiming that they stole some of the product or graphics or idea or something from them. So the game hasn't actually come out yet, but they did do a few rounds of beta testing for the game that you kind of had to hear about. But I also don't know, have you ever played Escape from Tarkov, or have you ever heard of that game?
That sounds familiar. I don't think I've played it though.
So that's like a first-person shooter, and basically, it's kind of like a lot of different games now where everybody lands. I guess Escape from Tarkov was one of the first ones, and I guess a lot of other games have based around it now. But basically, everybody kind of lands in this area, and then you start with nothing, and you have to find stuff, and then you also have to escape, and then whatever you escape with, you get to keep, and then if you die, you kind of can lose all your stuff. And, it's like a shooting, type game, but Dark and Darker is the same concept, but it's fantasy, swords and sorcery. So it's really interesting. You can pick
That's cool.
a fighter or a rogue. Yeah, it's really an interesting game.
Hopefully that's
and
better,
so it's
like
Skyrim,
story, but with the same graphics,
Well, so it's I know you like story-based games. It's unfortunately not story-based. It's definitely very multiplayer, PvP. Basically,
okay.
You all kind of land in
games.
this dungeon.
There's some of those I enjoy, oh man, well, Call of Duty. I enjoy playing a multiplayer on that. On some of them.
Yeah.
I grew up I grew up during the prime of Call of Duty, Modern Warfare 2 and Black Ops, which had just banging multiplayers. I love that. I love those types of games. But
Yeah. So think Call of Duty mixed with Skyrim a little bit. You can pick different classes fighter, barbarian, rogue, and each one has some different abilities, but you're all, so for one, you're all pretty squishy. Nobody is really just strong. If you hit you all start in like a dungeon, and you can have people on your team, and then you fight through monsters and collect their loot, and then you can try to just avoid everybody and not fight any players and just like fight monsters, collect their loot, and then the map gradually gets smaller, and then towards the
Oh,
end
so
then
it's
these
like
portals
Fortnite.
appear. Kinda, yeah, kinda like that. And then, except at the
I'm
end,
sad.
there's
I'm sad.
like,
I'm comparing it to that because I'm not a huge Fortnite fan, but it sounds like that. Yeah.
yeah, definitely with like the map shrinking. But then once it gets to like really small, then these portals appear, and then there's escape portals where you can get it, and then you escape with all the loot you have. Or there's down portals that actually take you to like a lower level that has even harder monsters and stuff like that. But it's kind of interesting too, because like only one person can use a portal. So like there, you may be on a team of like 2 or 3 people, and then a portal comes up and only one person can take it. And there's even been like sometimes where, like a player on your team will fight you and try to take the portal. And but anyways, it's a cool game. I hope it ends up coming out. They've had a few beta rounds of testing, and then I think it's kind of stuck in lawsuits right now, so we'll see what happens.
Sorry, I was looking at some of my games. I was like, what? Because I was getting thrown off by some of them.
Yeah.
Well, it's another one of my favorite games. But yeah, no, I mean, games have also inspired my storytelling as well, because I kind of like the interactive part of it, and you get to explore it makes world building easier, because you can go there
Yeah.
and, like, play there, and it's all cool.
Yeah.
That was probably my favorite part of Skyrim. It's this cool world, and you can kind of visit places and, have a good time.
That's the one thing I wish that, I mean, comparing Disco Elysium to Skyrim is completely, I mean, they're just completely different. But I do wish Disco Elysium had like a larger world. Like, you're kind of just exploring this one mystery in this kind of like, medium-sized city. And there's still a lot to explore. And I feel like I played through the game a few different times, and depending on what skills you pick, completely change the way the game plays, I feel like. But I just wanted to bring it up again because it's just such an amazing story. And even for, I feel like even as a writer, like it helps. It's got some of the best internal monologues and dialogues I've ever seen. Like, one of my favorite parts is like you're passed out and waking up again, and like you kind of go from like this black consciousness, and then you hear these voices talking, and it's the voices are actually named like amygdala and your limbic
Amygdala.
system, and they're
Like,
like
for
they're
your
like
brain.
arg yeah, like you basically have parts of your brain
That
like
are literally
arguing with
talking to
you
you.
on, yeah, on whether or not to like just stay asleep forever or wake back up. And then you have like the other voices talking to you, so it's kind of cool. I guess the schizophrenia part with the voices you mentioned with the other Valhalla game made me think of that too.
Yeah, no, it's yeah, I'll definitely play that one. It sounds like something I would enjoy. Oh. Oh, okay, sorry. You kind of froze there for a second. Um I also really, I don't know if you ever played
Yeah,
any of,
got
like,
back up.
I don't know if you ever played, like, the Telltale games, like they did The Walking Dead.
Hmm.
They did a Batman game. They did one called The Wolf Among Us. Love those.
Yeah.
Very much interactive storytelling. I just love the, like, they give you like dialogue choices. It's very just. Sadly, they got shut down, and I've heard they are kind of making a comeback. But I was very sad when I heard they were shutting down, because they made some incredible games.
Yeah, those were cool too. I remember I hadn't played through, or I played the first Last of Us, but not the second one. But I watched my brother play a lot of that one.
Yeah, no, I love The Last of Us. Last of Us 2, I have some I have some mixed opinions on.
Yeah.
Um, I do think some of the criticism, I've mentioned this before, but I thought some of the criticism of Last of Us 2 was a little bit overblown, but there was some stuff I had issues with. I also like the Batman Arkham games a lot.
Oh, those are cool. Yeah, those are awesome.
You know, I'm a big Batman fan, so I'm like, yeah,
Yeah.
boy. And they got Kevin
Same
Conroy
here.
back. You know, it was good. It was fun. Arkham City's probably my favorite one out of all of them because it's just like, God, it made Arkham it made Gotham City into a place, and it's really like, oh man, you can fly around.
Yeah, that was a really cool game series. I'm definitely a big Batman fan too. I remember watching the Michael Keaton Batman come out when I was a kid, and my parents probably got sick of that movie. I rewound it in the VCR so many times.
I remember there was this one scene where the Joker, Jack Nicholson's Joker, like
Yeah.
gasses like the news station people, and they have those just demented grins, and that
Yeah.
freaked me out when I was a kid. I was like, yeah.
I remember the one for me was the one where Danny DeVito's the penguin, and then there's that part where he like bites that guy's nose off, and I was like, ah! The first time I saw that.
That was some inspired casting, I have to say.
Yeah, that was pretty awesome.
Danny DeVito is the penguin. I was really sad I never got him back for like whatever, but you know it's. But yeah, no, I watched like the animated show growing up, and
Oh man, yeah, that was some like solid cartoon, back in the day. That was a solid like American cool 90s cartoon, unique animated style, amazing voices, and yeah, it was one of the few too like kind of then that like had I know there were a lot of episodes that were one off, but I liked how they had a handful of episodes in each season that kind of continued with storylines and stuff.
there was
really cool.
like a continuity. Yeah, I get
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I enjoy the Arkham games because it's good, great stuff there. I thought, and it's also done by a lot of the same people who did the animated series. So I'm like, oh yeah, all right.
Oh, I didn't know that. That's cool.
Yeah.
I never knew that.
What else? Well, I already said Skyrim because just like exploring the world of Skyrim is really cool. Oh man.
Yeah. I'd be lying if I said I didn't have a necromancer named Malfus in Diablo 4.
Yeah, that's funny. Like I would I'd use like old fantasy characters like Conan or like Elric, and I would make like in Skyrim I would make like an Elric character.
Yeah.
And Conan, and just kind of let them run around in Skyrim. So, because I got bored, I'm like, why not? I'll do it.
Yeah, man. Yeah, Skyrim was such an awesome game. I played some of the other ones before that too, like Morrowind and Oblivion, and they were probably one of the first. And even like way before that, they had Daggerfall and like some really like.
I heard
old
Morrowind has like the best story, but like I've seen some graphics from it, and like yeah.
Yeah, I
They
tried
should
to go
really
back.
remaster that game at some point.
Yeah, it was fine for me back in the day, but yeah, going back and playing it again was rough. But those were some of the first like fantasy games that had like the whole open world as much as they did. That was really cool.
Oh yeah, I also really like Mass Effect as well.
Yeah, yeah.
I finally got to play them a few years ago, and I'm like, yay! I get to finally see what everyone's talking about, and I really enjoyed them.
Yeah.
And I didn't mind the ending. It's like there was some... Like, I remember everyone was complaining about it. I'm like, I want to see what it's all about. And I'm like, this isn't that bad. Could have been worse.
I think a lot of people discount video games as, just being video games, but there really are some games out there that have some great stories. I mean, there's definitely, parts of the game that can get repetitive in any game, but there are some games out there that have some really fantastic stories that are worth checking out.
Yeah, no, I mean, I remember. I don't know if you've ever watched the Act Man on YouTube, but I remember one of the points he's made. He's like, what makes a good video game? It should be fun, and I'm like, yes.
Yeah.
So I don't necessarily mind like repetitive gameplay. Like if it's fun to play, I'm good to go.
Yeah, I don't know why I like Dark Souls so much because that game is not fun to play. That game is just torture. But after beating a boss for, like after the 30th attempt, there's just like this satisfaction that I've accomplished something in my life for that day, I guess.
You beat him and you're like, yes, I'm gonna go to bed now.
Finally.
I have beaten him.
Yeah, oh and man, and Sekiro or Sekiro, I don't know how to say it, but that was another game made by From Software, the same company, and wow, that one was a hard ass game. That had some of the most frustrating boss fights that I wanted to break a controller on, but I still beat that one too.
I mean, I don't know if you've ever like read Berserk, but I read Berserk not too long ago, and I'm like, oh man, this is where these guys probably got some of their ideas from when they were
Yeah,
making this.
it's actually kind of funny. So I haven't read Berserk yet. I've heard a lot about it, and I really want to get into it. It sounds
Like, there's
really
one
really
point they have
awesome.
a big ass sword. I'm like, oh my gosh, they took that from this.
Yeah, I think even the what was it called, the Dark Watchers or something. There's one boss fight in Dark Souls, Dark Souls 3, which I think is like kind of like a literal, direct copy of at least the way a character looks in Berserk. Because I actually remember seeing it in Berserk, after playing Dark Souls 3 and like seeing an image of that character, on an internet search or something. I'm like, they ripped off Dark Souls 3, but then I look around like, oh, Berserk's been around
Oh wait,
longer. Dark
it's the
Souls
other
3
way
ripped off
around.
Berserk. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's yeah, no, I'm like, oh, so this is where they got some of their ideas. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah,
I
and
mean, I don't
I
mind.
think
People are always ripping each other off. I'm like, you know what? I just accept it at this point.
that's just kind of the way it works, There's no such thing as a truly original idea. Everything's just kind of a bunch of different, new takes on old stories, and whether you can compare a direct story to, something else, or if it's more of a like human archetypes, Carl Jung type thing. I think we all kind of have different stories, in human history and in recent history that kind of repeat themselves.
Yeah, no, yeah, we tend to do that. We repeat ourselves. Um,
So you got a lot of books back there stacked up
yeah,
behind
I
you.
know. I know it's very dignified looking. I have a bunch of books back there. I have a shelf right here. I have a shelf in my bedroom, and some other stuff where most of my comics are, because I read a lot of comics. Um,
Awesome.
but yeah, no, I do have a lot of books.
Yeah, I do too. I need to reorganize. I do pretty good with the organization of my like Dungeons and Dragons books and stuff, but a lot of like my fantasy series and writing books and stuff, I need to or they're just kind of scattered all over.
So, like, what are some other like fantasy series you enjoy? I mean, maybe like book wise.
So definitely, obviously Joe Abercrombie, we've already talked about that one. I started reading Malazan, and that one is interesting to me, but that one just seems like so really, really deep. Uh, so here's one that I think not too many people have heard of. Have you heard of the Dark Sun series with Gene Wolfe, or by Gene Wolfe?
I've heard of it. I have not read it. Not yet anyway. I read one of his books a few years ago. It was called The Land Across, and
Okay,
I didn't love it. I thought it was
this is my cat.
I thought it was really weird. Like, there was like a muddy hand in it, but yeah, I know what you're talking about. I've heard of that series. I haven't read it though.
I like that one. I haven't finished the whole thing. I think I finished the first two books, but it's really interesting because it's sci-fi and fantasy. Like it takes place in kind of like a post-apocalyptic Earth, and that's kind of regressed to like a feudal society. So like a lot of the technology that they discover and use and have in the story is basically like magic, but it was just a very unique world and story and writing style. Like I feel like Gene Wolfe is one of those people who's just been the smartest man in the room his whole life, and there's people who just have podcasts about analyzing like his book chapter by chapter, and I don't go that deep into it, but it's like he's got so much stuff hidden in there. Oh,
Yeah,
and the interesting thing
Oh,
too is he's actually the inventor of Pringles. Like if you look up his face, like he's got the big giant mustache.
oh yeah, I've
But
heard that. I've heard that. I don't know if that's like a joke or if that's like
It
real.
it's true actually. Like he doesn't own the company, but he was one of the engineers or something like that at the company, and I guess he was the one who came up with the unique process to make Pringles, and they kind of used his likeness on the can and
Oh
everything.
wow, that is hilarious. It literally. I know
Yeah.
Wikipedia is like kind of dissed on, but it says Gene Wolfe, a mechanical engineer and author, helped develop the machine that cooks them. That is just.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah, so I feel like he's definitely like a kind of weird eccentric genius and comes across a bit in his writing.
Yeah, no, I read The Land Across. I'm like, I see a lot of people really enjoy this guy's work, and I'll try booking the new Sun at some point because it definitely sounds like something that could be of interest. But
Yeah,
I can definitely see
it's
how people would bounce off of it.
yeah, definitely. Like, and I kind of feel the same way a bit with Malazan, and don't beat me up if there's any fans out there. Like, I really like Malazan, but it's also one of those books where it's just like the world is just incredibly dense and thick, and the lore is dense and thick, and they just draw in both the series. They kind of just throw you and drop you right in there, and then it's your job to figure all this stuff
I think they
out. And
made that originally as an RPG, if I remember.
oh yeah, I didn't know that. The Malazan one.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Interesting.
GURPS, I think. It's probably
Huh.
some Malazan fans are probably gonna be like, and go off on the comment section like, no, it was this. But I do think it was GURPS though. It was originally. I don't know if you've like played. I've never played GURPS before, but
A handful. I know they got like a really expansive like role playing game system where I think they've had everything from like Robotech that fit in there to all kinds of stuff.
but yeah, no. I mean, I've Malazan's weird because like I'm kind of intimidated by that series. Like I don't tend to read
Yeah.
like a lot of like big series that are like 10 or something books long. Like I try to stick with
Yeah.
like trilogies or like standalones with the occasional longer series. I mean, I do like Game of Thrones. But
Yeah.
but I've heard like Malazan is like it's a lot.
What about the Lies of Locke Lamore by Scott Lynch?
Ooh, yes, I just read that this year. It's one of my favorite reads this year. It was really I
Oh,
really
nice.
enjoyed that one. Have you read it?
Yeah. Yeah, I read the first one. I haven't read the other. He's one of the first book authors I've read. I haven't gotten to the other books in the series, but really enjoyed the first book for sure. That was really cool.
Yeah, I mean, I read The Lies of Lochmora. Last month I read Red Seas Under Red Skies, and I enjoyed that one as well. And hopefully maybe in like September I can read The Republic of Thieves, and then that's another one where he's like, I'm gonna write 7 books, and he's only has 3 out right now. So thanks, Scott Lynch, you're swell.
I feel like that's gonna be my inevitable fate.
Yeah,
I hope it won't be, but I'm afraid I'm a slow writer. So I think I'll probably get through book 2 and people will be like, "Ah, it took you long enough." And then book 3, I'm just gonna get stuck and be like, help."
yeah, no, it's yeah, no, that's good. Yeah, that's hilarious that he that's hilarious. He helped make Pringles. That's a weird
Yeah.
that's a weird like little sub like because I had heard that before. I'm like, no, that has to be like a joke or something. I just looked it up like right now.
What do you even lead with in a conversation? Oh yeah, I'm an author. Or, oh yeah, I'm the inventor of Pringles. Like in either one of those is a cool leading line.
Oh man, I bet when he went like the World Fantasy Awards, he's like, "Hi, I'm Gene Wolfe. I helped make Pringles, and I wrote these books, and I got a nice mustache."
Yeah.
I'm just like,
Yeah, I
I
think that's the funniest part is that like he actually like looks like the Pringles guy.
yeah, yeah. I've seen. Yeah, I saw like an interview of him, and he didn't have the mustache, and I was like, what?
Ah, that would be weird.
Where is it? Where is the mustache? No, I've only read one of his books, and I didn't love it, but yeah, I do want to read Book of the New Sun. Now I'm definitely wanting to read it since I learned he also helped make Pringles.
Yeah.
I'm like,
Yeah, I
that's
definitely
pretty
have a lot
hardcore.
of
I mean, I'm just saying.
I definitely have a lot of authors that I need to go back and finish. Like, I'm kind of in the same boat with you as Brandon Sanderson, to be honest. Like, I'll be honest, and I know there's going to be people on here who are going to burn effigies of me after this, but I like Brandon Sanderson. Like the first book I read, Mistborn, it was cool, and I really love the magic
That's
system
the
and the
one I'm
way
intrigued
he.
by. I don't mean to interrupt you, but like that's the one I'm
Yeah.
intrigued by because I'm like, oh, what if the Dark Lord won? That's interesting. I wanna, I kind of want to read about
Yeah.
that.
And,
But
and I definitely won't spoil any of the story. I'll just talk about like the magic system a little bit. And like the way the magic system he came up with called allomancy, which kind of uses these different metals that have different powers, and he explains it from like the point of view of the character who's like learning it from somebody else. So like you're learning it along with them, which is all kind of cool, and then you're watching them kind of get more powerful in the book, and I really like that. But some of I admit I haven't read a lot of his other books because I have been reading first books lately. But some of the writing style and some of the characters for me was a little monotonous. But luckily there were enough other parts of the
no
book
one's
that were
for
interesting
everyone.
to me to
So
keep
I
there.
mean,
Yeah,
I don't
yeah,
think, and personally, I don't think Brandon Sanderson would be for me. But I'd feel like a bad fantasy fan if I didn't try him at some point.
yeah,
Because it's like,
yeah.
because he's like such a big thing, and I've seen his YouTube channel. He seems like a cool guy, but
Yeah, and I've watched all of his videos actually as I was going through and writing Malfus and stuff. Like he's an amazing instructor and teacher, and it's really cool that he made. I mean, basically he's got like a whole 12, 13, 14 video series of some of his lectures at one of the
also his.
universities that he taught at,
I was,
and it's like a first or a semester of a writing class with him. Basically, it's pretty cool.
I was gonna say his work ethic is also enviable, but I didn't want to get into
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, definitely can't write as much as he can. But yeah, he's a really cool author. I love what he's doing for the author community, and some of his instruction videos and stuff that he's made. I'm reading Assassin's Apprentice by Robin Hobb right now, and I'm
Oh
I'm
yeah,
really enjoying that one.
a lot of people have been telling me to read that. I'm like, yeah, I'll read it at some point because again, it's a trilogy, so I'll give it a read. But like some of the covers in like at least stateside, and I'm kind of a cover snob,
Yeah.
so I'll admit this is probably very petty of me, but I'm like, this looks like that type of like those like mom covers you see at like Walmart, I'm like, this is not
Yeah.
good. and, and my
Well, I'll say it definitely doesn't read like a mom book,
that's
luckily.
good.
But yeah, I kind of honestly I'll agree with you with that cover. I was like, it kind of didn't really fit the genre of some of the other stuff that I read and like.
Yeah,
But
like Ursula K. Le Guin is an author I would love to try at some point. It's one of those like fantasy like grandmasters that I've always been told about. Now I want to try her at some point. Just
yeah,
haven't gotten around to it.
yeah, I definitely have one of the ones my friend keeps telling me to read. Especially now that Patrick Rothfuss has admitted or that he's finally coming out with his book after 12 years, like all these other authors are doing. But Name of the Wind by Patrick Rothfuss is really good. I've heard. I haven't checked that one out.
Yeah,
But the interesting thing
I've
too
heard
is
it's a good one, but I don't know. It could be I don't know how I'm gonna react to that book because I've heard like a lot of
yeah,
differing things.
Same here too, and I guess
Seems to
both
be a
Assassins.
polarizing experience. It's kind of like Malazan in that way.
Yeah. But I guess both Assassin's Apprentice and this one are both written from a second person or first person POV, second person POV, I think first person POV. So it's a little, different. I think most of the books I'm used to reading are third person POV. So
Yeah, I don't mind. I don't mind first person. I mean, I read a lot of like crime books, and that's a lot in like
yeah,
first person. So I'm like, I'm fine with it. But
yeah,
it was
definitely something I enjoy. Like I said, trying to expand my writing and author chops because I haven't read a whole lot of first person books. So
yeah. No, I read one called The Black Tongue Thief a few months
that sounds
back,
familiar.
and the world building was pretty good. But aside from that, I was kind of like, it's okay.
Yeah.
Like,
You, I'll be honest, like I feel like one of the big things, and I know everybody's got different writing styles and there's readers who prefer, different books and different worlds and everything, but I feel like one thing I see a lot, especially when I have like, some fantasy authors and stuff who talk to me and want feedback on their stuff is like some of these people are world builders first and foremost, before anything else. And I get it, we all have to and need and want to build these unique fantasy worlds and stuff, but I think that there are definitely some people who go way so far over the top with that they lose sight of character and story, and that's kind of the driving force in a lot of the world that they're in, and exploring in the background is kind of just that, the background. And yeah, I don't know, that was an info dump explanation of don't info dump in your story too
yeah,
much, I
dump.
guess, out there
Yeah, I'm
for
not an
authors.
info dump fan myself, so I get
Yeah.
what you mean. Also, I was just reading about Gene Wolfe. Apparently, he also corresponded with Tolkien a little bit. So this man's
Hmm.
lived a this man's lived an interesting life.
Yeah, that is cool. I didn't know that either.
Or so again, so it says on Wikipedia. It could be wrong, but
Yeah.
we'll see. But no, uh, yeah, yeah, no,
Y-
info dumping. Don't do that. There's even writers I like who've done it, and I'm like, oh man, don't do
Yeah.
that. That's not good.
I kind of took the so talking about video games and stuff again. I really like Dark Souls and Elden Ring, and one of the things I thought was really cool about their world and their lore is like, just playing the game. I mean, even in just like the first hour of playing any of those games, you can tell it's like really deep and really interesting, curious world, but there's so much of that game like where the lore is just kind of like breadcrumbs or just like these little tiny pieces that they drop in like descriptions of items, even,
Well,
that are
I
kind of
would think
explaining the world.
it's easier to I don't mean to interrupt you. I'm sorry, but
Oh no, it's cool.
I think it's easier to world build in like games or like more or something with a more visual medium
Yeah,
because you can see it. You don't have to
yeah,
necessarily
yeah.
imagine it in your head, which I mean that's I mean nothing wrong with that, of course, but it's just kind of that's one of the things I like about like video games because like it makes world building easier because you can go to those places.
Well, I guess the thing that I Dark Souls and Elden Ring do really cool with that is like, they're you like Skyrim. Skyrim's huge and filled with lore, and there's like books in the game that you can read and tells you stuff. And if you really want to get into the Skyrim lore, you can really deep into that. But like with Dark Souls and Elden Ring, it's like they kind of just drop these little breadcrumbs of lore there for people to find, to the point where there's people in Reddit arguing about how some things are in the world. And I kind of like that approach for storytelling. I mean, not necessarily to that extreme, but if info dumping is one extreme and then that's the other, I like the idea of showing like what I've tried to do in Malfus anyways, especially because the story all takes place in one spot, really, is to show that there is a much larger world out there, but do that through like, drops in the conversation or just kind of like little tiny things and hints as you're going through the story about the way the cultures and worlds work without a paragraph of a character kind of just saying it out loud for no reason, you know?
Yeah, no. Yeah, no, it always bugs me when I'm reading books and someone goes like, well, back in the day when this guy slayed this dude, and I'm like,
Yeah.
what does this
Yeah.
have to do with anything? Unless it's like
Right,
one of those
exactly.
characters who's like an academic or something who just like goes on little tangents like that. Like that's the only place where that could probably work. But
One thing I kind of did, and I know I'm not the first author to have done this, but I felt like it was kind of this cool little interesting cheat way to do it. But I put epigraphs. I didn't even know that's what they were called until I was talking with one of my editors. But like at the beginning of each chapter, I have like a 2 or 3 sentence kind of like quote, and I know a lot of other authors have done that. Like I think they did that. Frank Herbert did it in Dune, and I think Brandon Sanderson has done it in some of his books.
I don't love
But
Dune, but I get what you mean. I get
yeah,
the point you're making.
um, but basically, like, so the beginning of each chapter, I have like a 2 or 3 sentence quote from a random person in the world that's actually not in the novel, but like just a random person from the world to kind of like set the mood of the chapter and
I've
also
seen
throw some world building out there.
I've seen some fantasy authors who've done that, and I just kind of shake my head. I'm like, I don't think I can do that.
It was it was fun and interesting because like I didn't in the next book I think I've kind of established that I have to do it now because I've done it in the short story and I've done it in the novel. I think in the next book I am gonna do it from the get go because in these ones I like did it. I started halfway through and had to go back, but it was kind of like a fun little mini game because I had to pick something that matched with the chapter, and set the mood for the chapter and kind of like added to it and wasn't just tacked on.
Yeah, no, yeah, no, I don't think I could do that. I'm like, good lord, how am I gonna make up all this stuff just like use random? Like, I could probably make up a couple quotes, but like, how am I gonna figure out like how these people said this thing, and like where it came from? These fake books I've never like. I'm just making up. Like, I don't think I could do it. But
Yeah.
but you
It
know,
was it was definitely a challenge, but yeah, I just kind of um picked like okay, so here I'll do the first one. Uh so the purpose of this one for me was to establish the well, I'll read it first. Okay. The world is dying. It is better to know this now, child. Though you live and breathe, love and hate, beneath your feet the world suffers a mortal wound, the scar. We are but maggots writhing atop a corpse. Mother Magrid, orphan minder, Degalis. So I guess for me that was to kind of both set the mood for the chapter and then to show that the world had had this kind of ancient calamity with necromancy and stuff before, but anyways, it was just a completely random orphan minder in another country that is never going to be part of that book or anything, but just to kind of show
just like
show
some
the
random,
world and
just
everything.
some random, just some random quote. I get it.
Well, it's kind of fun too because like if you pay attention to my book, like there's a few where like the person is kind of referenced again in like the novel, or like 1 or 2 of the quotes are like kind of tell a story because it's the same person again, like at the end, and I don't know. It was definitely fun to do, little interesting fun thing to add there for my book.
I think you would like. I don't know if you've read Perdido Street Station, but I think you'd like that one. The world building in that is just
Hmm.
love it. It's
Yeah, I
great.
don't think I've heard of that one.
It's a great book. I did cover it on my channel, but no, it's yeah, no, it's by a guy called China Mieville. Um, yeah, the world building in that is just insane.
Huh.
It's about a city.
Cool.
Um,
I'll have to check that out. Check it out on your channel.
Yeah, no, it's like I was really fascinated because it's almost he made the setting into a character of its own. It's really
Hmm,
fascinating. I'm really fascinated by how he did it. Um, but yeah, it's
interesting.
one of those books I've started like going harassing people to go read because I'm like, you gotta read this as soon as possible.
Yeah, I've been like that with all my fantasy friends who I play D&D with who haven't read Joe Abercrombie yet. I've
Ah,
been shouting his praises.
it's been easier with Joe Abercrombie because like there's a bunch of other people who are like, hey, Joe Abercrombie, he's pretty good. So I'm like,
Yeah.
all right, it makes my job easier. Crack knuckles. So, I can just sit back and have a good time. Just be like, hey, what'd you think of Joe Abercrombie? I'm like, oh, it's pretty good. Just check him out.
Yeah. He wrote a another not First Law series too that I saw was out and I guess it's more of like a YA. At least that's what people have said. I've seen some people say it's a YA fantasy series, and then some other people have said it's just YA if you compare it to First Law, but it's definitely not YA. But anyways, I think it's called like the Winter King or something. I can't even remember, but I will
I know he
have
did
to.
like a sort of YA trilogy. I haven't read it, but
Yeah,
I've heard it. I've heard it's also pretty good.
that's the one I'm thinking about, and I mean I like his writing style, so I'll definitely have to check out that first book too.
Yeah, no, um yeah, no, I like Abercrombie's stuff. It reminds me of why I enjoy some of like Robert E. Howard's stuff. It's
Yeah,
just like modern and like it's more like dark. And there's also a lot of like good humor in it, which it's hard to talk about First Law without just repeating what everyone else says. Like, oh, it's got great humor, great characters. And I'm like, oh,
right.
we know that. Yeah. I've also covered.
um, he's working on. So I guess he's a pretty busy guy. You know, he's been stuck busy with the movie stuff. I'm sure, and so I don't know if
Heard he's
he's
working
still
on a new
been.
book too.
Yeah,
It's like
that
some.
new book looks really funny. Have you read much about what it's about?
Yeah, I've heard it's more like a wacky like monster adventure or something. I'm like, okay.
Yeah, it looked kind of fun. I guess the best way I could think of describe, from the short little part I read is kind of like the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, but with monsters. Like I guess there's like a vampire or something, and then there was like a cursed knight and some other, and I guess they get fired or taken out of their cells or whatever when there's mysteries the church has to solve or something like that. I probably messed it all up or it might change before then, but looked cool, looked funny and interesting, a little different than his other stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, if I ever talk to Joe Abercrombie, if the stars ever aligned, one of the things I would ask him is if there was another genre you would work in, like what would it be? Because
Yeah,
because I was reading some of the First Law, I'm like, there's some other genres I could definitely see him writing in and doing well in.
I definitely would like to see him write kind of like a noir mystery type.
You took the words right out of my mouth. That was
Yeah,
it. That was
that would be
I'm
awesome.
like, dude, he could write like a really like hard boiled like noir. I think he could do it very well. If
Yeah. I keep seeing like, mafia like 40s, 30s, 40s, 50s mob in there somewhere. I don't know. That would be a cool series either way. It could really be in any time frame or setting. It could be sci-fi. I just think a mystery kind of cuz I don't know, I feel like Joe's just such honestly smart, clever guy and writer. I feel like you kind of have to be smart and clever to do mysteries. I don't think I could do a mystery. It's like you got to have that whole puzzle in your head already and then drop just enough pieces for the reader to keep them interested and trying to figure it out but not give them enough to solve it, but then at the end it can't just be like, oh, but it was this the whole time, and then and then it makes the whole mystery experience not believable if they couldn't have solved it. Like it's a lot to do.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny you mentioned that because the story I'm writing is effectively a mystery.
Yeah,
And the thing about writing a mystery is that you have to it's like peeling like a fruit or like an onion.
yeah,
You have to like cut pieces off and like set them down and let or like it's like putting pieces of candy down in the like leading the purse. That sounds really suspect, but I hope you get what I'm getting at. It's
Yeah.
but
Yeah,
yeah.
I definitely feel like a lot of some of my favorite movies and stuff are definitely mystery movies. Like or mystery slash psychological thriller, where something is uncovered or, like that layer type thing. I really like that aspect in movies and stuff, especially.
Yeah, no, I enjoy those as well. Like I love Seven, and like
Yeah, oh, that's a good one.
yeah, I'm obsessed with that movie. I'm always like, that movie's better than Fight Club, and people get all mad, and it's just,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah, I mean, both of those that was some good quality Brad Pitt we got back in the day in that little window there.
yeah, late '90s. He was on a run, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, no,
Well,
but yeah, no, it's good. I mean, I'll ask you this as well because I was thinking about this the other night when I was writing. But like, what's like it's sort of a like what's your favorite like aspects to write and what's like some of your like least favorite like when you're writing something.
hmm. Um, that's a good question. So one thing I've tried to kind of do is to challenge myself with things that I had trouble with. So, one of the things at first was dialogue. Like I feel like had trouble with dialogue, and especially with multiple speakers, like more than just two people having conversations, and and also that's one of the things I thought Joe Abercrombie did really well. Is like some of his dialogue is can be complicated with multiple people talking, but then you have like Glockta's inner monologue, like jumping in between some of those lines and stuff too. And I thought that was really interesting. So that was part of, what I challenged myself to do with Malfus is also have him have a lot of internal monologue in between, some of the dialogue. But then there was actually one short story I did where I have, this one is not one of the published ones, but I have Malfus like sitting. It's kind of funny. I was sitting in a coffee shop when I wrote this book. Pretentious writers do sit in coffee shops and write in front of everybody. And I was kind of people watching, and so I was like, what if Malthus was in an inn and he was kind of like people watching while he's reading his spell book, or whatever, nursing his wounds from the first short story
Or
or
drinking a
whatever.
tea.
And yeah, drinking some tea. And so so
Or
basically I
something.
challenged
I don't know what they have in your world. I haven't read Malthus yet.
some good old L. Gotta have some L in the fantasy. So he's basically kind of like sitting listening to these three guys talking at like a different table, and then hears about an adventure type thing that he goes off to explore. But so anyways, when I have found things that I have struggled with writing, I have tried to push myself to tackle those things. And then once I have, then it's been a lot easier. But I'll say the opposite end of that is combat. I feel like writing combat scenes for me, is really easy to do. And one thing a friend of mine pointed out the other day, that was kind of cool to me to hear, because I didn't really realize this as I was writing it. But he said one of his favorite things about the combat scenes I had in my writing is like a lot of fantasy books, when they write about combat or these fight scenes, it's like the grandiose and the biggest things they focus on, like how many troops are there, how big the battle is, how powerful this person is, or something. But I focused on like some of the smallest things, like a rock being stuck in your shoe while you're running, or forgetting your crossbow, and like just some of those like really small things, like because it's funny and interesting, but those are some of the things you remember, like whether or not you shaved that day, or whether or not you ate that morning, when you're in the middle of some of those crazy
Like,
things.
do you pick those up from like when like did you pick that up from like when you were in the military? Just like I don't know. Did you I mean, I don't know if you Did you see combat when you were in the military?
Some. So I was, definitely not like a ton. Like, I'm not one of those guys that talk about how much of a badass I was or anything. I was a,
I don't think anyone
I,
does.
yeah,
in those
I
types
was
of situations.
a signal. Okay, so I was a radio guy at first, and then
Oh,
I
okay.
realized that they had to keep the routers and computers air conditioned. So then I switched to that, so they kept me air conditioned. But I went to Iraq once and Afghanistan twice. And I was in, and Iraq was a little bit hairy because we were, doing a lot of convoys and stuff. And my truck actually did get hit by an IED at one point while I was over there.
Mm.
But I don't know. I guess, so it's not like I was, going around kicking in doors or anything. But
Well, yeah.
between IEDs and like
I wasn't gonna
mortars,
ask that.
yeah.
It's like if
But
I
I
went
guess like
well, did you shoot people? I'm like, no, I'm not gonna ask that. But
I guess like, between IEDs and like mortars coming in and just, some random crazy stuff over there, it's like once all that adrenaline starts pumping, it's like your brain just kind of remembers some of the funniest, silliest things of like a candy wrapper, a Twix candy wrapper in the dirt flapping next to you while you're hearing, bullets ricochet, or just like some really weird specific things like that just you remember. And I don't know, it's kind of interesting, I guess.
yeah, no, I mean, I've noticed that in like a lot of like weird situations. Like I've gotten into some like car accidents, which I guess that's not
Yeah.
really the same thing, but
I think it's
like
exactly the same thing,
like
honestly. No, I mean
right before I've
seriously.
noticed like every time it's happened like right before, it's almost like my brain goes on autopilot or something.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
can't
that's
I
exactly it.
can't
No,
really
like
like you
you're
don't think
so
about anything that's going on. You're like, oh, this is happening right now. Okay.
exactly. Yeah. So I'm a big psychology nerd too. I went to school for psychology, and so I think like, once all that adrenaline starts pumping, you basically like your amygdala and your brain just starts like it's your fight or flight response basically. Like your
Yeah.
all your higher level thought goes away, and then you just have basically your instincts that kick in and take over. And like when that happens, I feel like your perception as a person kind of like shrinks down a little bit, and you're just focused on like the immediate things. And whether it's a car accident or anything that kind of triggers that fight or flight response, your memory just does some weird things with that and
Yeah.
picks out like these little tiny weird things that don't even matter. And it's like that's what you remember. Like I can remember the day I was driving where we got hit by the IED, that I didn't shave that day, and I was the driver, and the first sergeant sitting next to me, I was like, oh, he's gonna notice I didn't shave, and those were like the things I remember thinking about, like right when the IED went off.
Yeah.
Kind of interesting, I
Well, I
guess.
mean, I don't want to. I don't know if this is gonna sound bad, but um, you look fine for someone who got hit by an IED. I guess,
Really
unless like your
lucked
leg got
out,
blown off that I
honestly.
can't see.
Yeah, I was trying to lift my knee up. I can't, not as funny as I was trying to be, as I'm not that flexible. No, I got all my limbs. I'm just joking.
You got all your
Um,
limbs intact. Yeah.
got all my limbs intact. I was actually really lucky. So when I was in Iraq in 2004, like when we first got over there, we had like Mad Max Humvees, like where we had like pieces of metal like welded to our Humvees because they didn't have like enough of the armored Humvees and stuff to go around. So I mean, it was crazy. Like we were literally driving in cars that had like metal welded onto them and sandbags on the floors and stuff. Well, the very first uh, convoy that we did, where we finally got up armored vehicles that had like the 4-inch thick bulletproof glass and all that stuff. That was the first convoy where I got hit by an IED. So had I been in the old Mad Max Humvees, probably wouldn't be here to tell the same tale.
Yeah.
So
No.
lucked out.
Yeah. I'm sure not.
Yeah.
Um. But yeah, no, I've noticed that. Like, again, not to say like getting in a car crash is like the same thing as like being in the military or being in like a weird like a combat situation, but um, But yeah, it's almost it's like your brain goes on autopilot. I don't know what it
Yeah.
is.
Yeah, seriously. It really is like that. I don't know. It's interesting. Guess just the old fight or flight response, but yeah. But anyway, so I try to focus on some of those things in the story, especially as I'm writing like some of the soldiers' perspectives as they're, going through the different battle scenes and stuff. And
Yeah, that's I mean, mine's a bit more like small scale because I'm like, I don't really want to do like this. I don't want to do like this like big epic thing just yet. Like the next book will be a little more like more like a traditional quest adventure, but like this one's
yeah.
more like a small town mystery. I'm like, I want to do that because like I don't want it to be too long, and I'm one of those like contrarian bastards who's like, I'm gonna do the opposite of what everyone else is gonna do.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't mind like the big chunkers, but I'm just kind of like but, I don't want to be like Malazan where you're just throwing a bunch of stuff at you.
Yeah.
Maybe
Yeah.
wait till
I
later.
I
That
I
can
was
wait.
kind of with you with that approach too. Like, it's a big battle, like siege scene that the whole book takes place around. But I wanted to focus on something small, like one particular battle, and make that as big as, possible, I guess. And kind of like you did, like zoom into something small and just focus
Like
on that.
so, it's like before they're hanged when they're hanging out during the siege, and oh my gosh, you can just imagine the sweat too. It's like ugh.
Yeah. Smell of dead gnolls laying around.
Yeah, no, yeah, no, Abercrombie's really good at that too. He's really good at just finding these like weird, like Dogman's always got to go piss before he goes to battle,
Yeah.
or something like that.
Yeah.
Oh, there's other things I'm probably forgetting, but because the battle scene,
Yeah.
because some of the fight scenes, which aren't very many, but some of the fight scenes I've had are more like Robert E. Howard-esque, where it's just like a bunch of like this kind of almost like ballet of death, I guess you could call it.
That's cool.
Yeah, I did one. I was like one of the action scenes I did. I'm actually kind of proud of it, but I'm like I
Yeah.
did it, and I'm like he fought like a mad ape because I was definitely ripping from Howard there. And one of my friends I showed it to, he's like, that line was stupid. Get rid of that. I'm like, yeah, okay. It doesn't sound that good. It sounded good in my head. I don't know.
Yeah. I definitely have a lot of those too. Some of them work, some of them don't.
Yeah, like I've had a couple of them. I'm like, oh man, I'm gonna blow the socks off everyone with this one. I'll show it to one of my friends. They're like, what the hell? What is this? And I'm like, oh. Well, I mean, I hate to cut this conversation short, but we have reached about 2 hours, so that's usually how long I like to go.
Oh, wow.
But I've enjoyed this conversation though, very much so.
Yeah, me too. This was fun. I definitely did not even realize we hit 2 hours here. I was like, oh, it's probably about an hour now, but
2 hours on my recording. I don't know if it's 2 hours like in
yeah.
real time, because it sometimes works differently. But yeah, no, this has been fun. I'm glad we were able to do this, because yesterday I was like, oh shit, like, oh man, it's gonna be a busy week, and then the guy I was gonna do today, he's all like, hey, we're gonna have to schedule till tomorrow. I'm like, all right. I hit you up. I'm like, hey man, you want to do this? And you're like, yes. I'm like, yes.
Yeah.
It worked.
Well, awesome, man. Thanks for having me on, and looking forward to hanging out with you and talking with you some more on Discord and stuff.
Wait a minute before you leave. If you have any like
Okay.
social media or anything, feel free to share, because I like to do that before everyone leaves.
Okay. Yeah, so I tried to. I
out a
was.
little bit.
I think I caught you about the social media
Oh yeah,
links, right?
just share your social media and stuff.
Okay. Yeah, so I kind of lucked out with naming, and I pretty much got Casey Sutton rights for almost everything. So my website is CaseySuttonWrites.com. Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, even YouTube is all at Casey Sutton Writes. I think Twitter is the only thing that I don't have that, and I'm not on it that much. But Casey Sutton Writes, you can find me. My book, Malfus, Necromancer Unchained, is on Amazon, ebook, paperback, and hardback, as well as audiobook. And Greedy as a Ghoul, the ebook is free and on Amazon, and you can also get signed copies from me from my website directly, and I'm working on making the sprayed edge ones available too once I can get it all down. But that's my into the video marketing spiel.
All right. Well, I mean, you can. Well, as I've noted, you can find me on Twitter, Goodreads, or Letterboxd. Find me there just fine. I do have a Discord server. I just need to mess with it and get the link to work because it's not doing it. But anyway, yeah, no, thanks for coming on, man. I'm glad we could make this work because I was like, oh man. But anyway, so all right, take care, everyone. See you guys later. Goodbye.
See ya. Bye.